Hello, everyone. You won't believe what happened to me and my husband. It's a story that still gives me chills when I think about it, but it needs to be told because it shows how karma really exists. My name is Helena. I'm 33 years old, and until recently, I believed I was lucky in love. When I met Andre, I thought the universe was finally rewarding me for all the toxic relationships I had left behind. He was kind, responsible, and laughed at my jokes even when I knew they weren't funny. A good man. The kind of partner you don't find easily. We had been together for 6 years and married for 2. We lived in a small apartment in St. Louis and had big plans. Andre received a job offer in Denver with double the salary, opportunities for growth and stability. It was the chance of a lifetime. To build the family we had always dreamed of, to get out of a difficult situation and start something of our own, far from the difficult memories, the limitations of our small town, and the family shadows that insisted on haunting us. There was only one obstacle, or rather, one constant presence: my mother-in-law, Lorraine. From the beginning, Lorraine made it clear that she didn't like me. I was never good enough for her son. She said it in a veiled way, with innocent questions like, "Helena, are you sure you can keep up with Andre? Do you have any relatives in college? Because your vocabulary is very simple." Lorraine was the type who hid behind good manners. Polite in public, but cruel in private. Andre, perhaps out of fear of confronting her, always downplayed it. "She's like that with everyone," he would say. "She'll warm up once we get to know her better." But the years passed, and she didn't warm up. She just became more subtle, more strategic. When we got the news about the move, Lorraine was the first to offer help. She said we could stay at her house for a few weeks while we got everything organized. What's more, she said she could hold on to our moving money until we found a new place in Denver. "That way you won't spend money unnecessarily. It's better to keep everything together. It makes things easier," she said in that sweet, manipulative tone. I hesitated. Something inside me told me not to accept. But Andre insisted. "She just wants to help, honey. She's trying to get closer." I wanted to believe that, so we deposited all $12,000, our savings from 3 years, into Lorraine's account. That amount would cover the moving truck, the deposit for the new apartment, plane tickets, and our initial expenses in the new city. But a week before our departure, everything fell apart. We got a call from the apartment owner in Denver saying that the deposit hadn't been made. I called Lorraine immediately. She answered calmly, as if nothing was wrong. "Oh, are you still moving? I thought you had given up." "What are you talking about, Lorraine? Where's the money we transferred?" "Well, I thought it would be better to use some of it for other things. After all, you guys are so impulsive. Someone has to be responsible here." I couldn't respond. The world was spinning. The words were stuck in my throat. Andre took the phone from my hand. He argued. He yelled. He cried. But Lorraine remained impassive. "You are ungrateful. I did everything for you. And now you complain? The money is not coming back. Get used to it." That night, sitting on the living room floor with empty boxes still around us, we cried together. And then she showed up. Yes, she came to our house, and when she saw us there, devastated, helpless, she laughed. A small, poisonous laugh, almost whispered, but loud enough to destroy me inside. That laugh was the starting point, not only of immense pain, but of a silent transformation. I didn't know what would come next, but something inside me broke and was reborn that night. I often ask myself, when did I start to lose myself? The answer, contrary to what many people think, was not when I entrusted the money to my mother-in-law, not even when she humiliated us on that cold night. It was long before that. It started when I stopped listening to myself. I met Andre at a coffee shop near the university campus where I worked as an administrative assistant. He came in all flustered, dropped a napkin on my laptop, and to make up for it, offered me a coffee and one of those smiles that disarms any bad mood. I laughed. He blushed. And so it began. Our relationship was sweet, light, and full of plans. He was affectionate, helpful, and made sure to include me in everything. Little by little, I got to know his family, and soon I met Lorraine. She greeted me politely, but with a look that scanned me from head to toe. I felt like an intern being evaluated. Every sentence she uttered had a testing, measuring tone. "So you work at the university, but not as a teacher, right? Family from the countryside, right? But you seem hardworking. That counts. Do you cook? Because Andre was raised on real food." At the time, I laughed politely. I tried to ignore it. I tried hard to please her. I brought desserts I had made, complimented the decor of her house, laughed at her jokes, even when they were clearly about me. Andre saw it, but always deflected. He said his mother was trying to adapt, that she was afraid of losing her place, that with time, everything would work out. I accepted it, because love made me want to please, and because, deep down, I also wanted a family. Mine had always been fragmented. My father disappeared when I was little. My mother struggled with depression for years. I grew up trying to be strong, trying not to be a burden. When I met the Morera family, the immaculate house, the Sunday lunches, the smiles in the photos on the wall, I thought that was what I needed. And Lorraine knew it. Over time, she began to infiltrate the couple's decisions. Small things at first. Suggestions for furniture, criticism of my taste for neutral colors, irresistible invitations to weekend dinners, till Andre started consulting his mother about decisions that should have been ours. Buying a car, taking a trip, trying for a child. I can't say I was passive the whole time. I tried to talk to him, but the blame always came back to me. You're too sensitive, Helena. My mother only wants what's best for us. You don't have to compete with her. I hated that phrase. Compete with her. As if it were a contest. As if my role were temporary and hers unquestionable. But I kept quiet. Out of love. Out of fear of losing. Out of hope that when we were living in another city, everything would be better. That thought sustained me for so long. Moving to Denver became a goal. A symbol of liberation. So when the job opening for Andre came up, I was thrilled. I made spreadsheets, budgets, and virtual tours of apartments. I started dreaming about the balcony we would have, the armchair where I would read my books, the morning walks in unfamiliar neighborhoods. And that's when Lorraine made her move. She offered financial help. She said we could leave the organization in her hands. That, as a good administrator, she would know how to take better care of the money. And that, after all, she just wanted to help. You'll be so busy with the move. Leave it to me. I hesitated. I said it wasn't necessary. But Andre defended her so fiercely that, for the first time, I felt that opposing his mother was opposing him too. I gave in. And with that, I gave her the key to our future. It's strange how certain feelings grow silently, like a crack that spreads without us noticing, until the ground finally gives way. I had already gotten used to swallowing my pride, as they say. Lorraine always found a way to belittle me, even when she was smiling. But after we decided to accept her help with the moving expenses, the subtleties turned into something more cruel, more direct, and, for some reason, with the veiled blessing of my own husband. At first, they were just casual comments at Sunday lunches. Andre, you should take better care of the finances. You can't expect someone with little experience at home to manage this kind of move. She would say this while looking at me, passing the rice dish with a smile on her face. Or, I was talking to my manicurist, and she's also moving. But she took care of everything herself, without depending on anyone. That's a real woman. It ate away at me. And the worst part was that Andre never argued back. At most, he would look uncomfortable, stare at his plate, and change the subject. One day, when we were alone, I confronted him. Don't you notice how she talks about me? How she puts me down? Helena, please. It's just the way she is. You know how she is. She's trying to help. I heard it like a mantra. Repeated ad nauseum, as if to numb me. And maybe it did numb me, because I kept quiet. I swallowed it. I carried on. But the episodes intensified. Lorraine started organizing everything on her own. She would call real estate agents without consulting me. She would send quotes to Andre with notes like, I spoke with so-and-so. They seem much more competent than the options Helena suggested. On one occasion, I took the trouble to prepare an entire budget plan, with price comparisons, detailed calculations, even a spreadsheet with a safety margin. Andre praised it, but before he could even open his mouth to suggest something to his mother, she interrupted. Oh, honey, let's not complicate things. I've already taken care of everything. I talked to a real estate agent friend of mine who can get us something much better. Helena's spreadsheet is cute, but this is the real world, not college. The most painful part? She didn't even read what I had prepared. And the most upsetting part? Instead of defending me, Andre asked me not to take it personally. Little by little, I began to feel invisible, and even worse, uncomfortable. As if my efforts were childish and useless, the wife who dreams too much, while the adults took care of things. I started avoiding meetings at her house. I said I was busy, tired, But the truth was that I couldn't stand being treated like an extra in my own life anymore. On one of my last visits, something became very clear. We were gathered in the living room, her, Andre, and me. We were talking about the logistics of moving the furniture. I tried to suggest a company with good reviews that a friend had used. Lorraine smiled and said, in that sweet tone of voice that only she knew how to use, "Helena, you're too emotional, dear. But moving requires a cool head. Leave it to us, okay?" She had excluded me from the sentence, from the process, from the partnership, as if I weren't part of the equation. And what hurt the most? Andre didn't say a word. He just continued planning with his mother, as if I were a curious child interrupting adults. That night, I came home in silence. He tried to strike up a conversation, tell jokes, be affectionate. I just lay down, facing the corner, feeling something growing inside me. The feeling that I no longer belonged to my own story. The love that made me give in began to become a burden, and the little silences I kept in my chest began to pile up, like sealed boxes from a move that might never happen. The worst prison is the one you build with good intentions. It takes a while to realize you're trapped, because everything seems to be for love, for the good of all. That's how Lorraine imprisoned me. After the episode in which I was completely ignored in the planning of the move, my participation in the preparations became practically nil. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was subtly pushed away. Andre and Lorraine talked to each other all the time. On the phone, through messages, and then, most shocking to me, through emails that deliberately excluded me. I found out by accident one day when I saw a conversation on his computer titled, "Final Moving Plan, Just Between Us." When I asked about it, Andre said, "Honey, you were already so tired. I thought it was better not to overwhelm you." I wanted to scream, not because of the email, but because of the way he said it as if it were for me, when it was clearly meant to neutralize me. I was now the sensitive one, the tired one, the one who is difficult. I lost space in everything. Even the visits to the new apartment were made without me. Lorraine traveled with Andre to Denver for a weekend. To settle some personal matters, he said. I had work and couldn't go. When I asked why she needed to go with him, he replied, "Because she has experience. And you said you trusted her, remember?" Trust. I didn't even remember what that was anymore. When they returned, everything was settled. Apartment chosen, company hired, deposit promised. Everything I knew afterwards. I was informed, not consulted. And as if that weren't enough, Lorraine began to emotionally infiltrate our marriage. At dinner, she would comment on how stressed Andre was. She insinuated that he was carrying everything on his shoulders. She would say things like, "My son is exhausted, all this because of a move. If it were me, I would never let him wear himself out like this." Again, without mentioning names. But all the venom was directed at me. The following week, Andre started going to bed later. He said he was worried that maybe we were rushing things, that I didn't seem as excited as before. I wanted to say, "Because you took me out of the whole process." But instead, I cried. And he looked at me as if I were the problem. The feeling of isolation became unbearable. I was there, under the same roof, with the same man I swore I loved, but I felt like a stranger, a temporary guest. I lost the desire to talk, to cook, to plan anything. And Lorraine noticed, and she took advantage of it. She started visiting us more often. She brought food, magazines with moving tips, spreadsheets. She would sit on the couch and make jokes about the real owner of the move. I smiled on the outside. Inside, I was slowly imploding. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation between the two of them in the kitchen. I was in my room, but the door was half open. She said, "You've always been very generous, Andre. But you need to take charge. Helena is nice, but she's still limited. You're the one with vision. This move will work because you've taken charge." And he didn't argue. I heard this with my hands shaking. And I understood, with a pain that still burns as I write. He was no longer on my side. The following week, the money was transferred to her account, all of it. More than $12,000. She said that centralizing would make logistics easier, and Andre accepted. At that point, I no longer had a say in anything. Every time I tried, it was drama, insecurity, tiredness. I began to doubt myself. Was I overreacting? Was I really getting in the way? That's how we start to disappear, one piece at a time. And it was in this state, emotionally numb, voiceless, groundless, that we entered the final month before the move. A month that would end with the cruel laughter of a woman in the face of our collapse. But at that moment, all I could think was, how did I let this happen to me? I used to consider myself a strong woman, one of those who can handle work, home, old pains, and still find time to take care of others. But during that period, when things started to fall apart silently, I realized that strength is not always resistance. Sometimes, being strong is recognizing that you are breaking. In the last 2 weeks before the move, my body began to feel what my mind could no longer contain. I woke up with a tight chest. I had crying fits in the bathroom, hidden away. I developed a constant headache that no painkiller could relieve. I went to work like a ghost, functioning on autopilot, smiling as little as possible, answering emails without realizing what I had written. And yet Andre seemed blind, or worse, accustomed to my pain. On the night we decided to pack the first items from the house, I sat on the floor with a cardboard box in front of me and stayed there. I was holding a frame with a photo of us from our first year together. We were both smiling, hugging each other in a waterfall, so alive, so close, and so far from what we were now. Andre walked into the room and saw me standing there, motionless. "Helena, are you going to pack this or—" I slowly looked up and asked, "Do you still love me?" He frowned, impatient. "Of course I do, but what does that have to do with anything now? We have so much to work out. Then why does it seem like you don't see me anymore?" He sighed, as if he had no patience for a conversation that was already starting with too much emotion. "Because you're always sad, Helena. Always suspicious. Nothing is good enough for you." I couldn't answer, because part of me thought he was right. I was sad and tired, but not because I was ungrateful. It was because I felt invisible, day after day. That same week, my mother called me. We weren't close, but she heard my voice and was silent for a few seconds before saying, "Daughter, you don't sound like yourself." It was the truest thing anyone had said to me in a long time. I started having insomnia. I tossed and turned in bed for hours. I thought about money, about moving, about how everything had spiraled out of control. I thought about Lorraine, the woman who now ruled our lives. And I felt a mixture of anger, fear, and failure. I started questioning everything. Had I let myself be fooled by love? Had I been too foolish? Or did I know deep down, but chose to pretend I didn't see it? One night, while I was washing the dishes, Andre came in and said Lorraine was coming over for dinner. "Again?" I asked, feeling a chill down my spine. "She's helping us, Helena. The least we can do is thank her." "You mean—" "The least I can do." He didn't even deny it. That night, Lorraine brought expensive wine and a pie she had baked. She sat at the table as if she were the hostess, and the most devastating thing was that she looked so comfortable there. She talked about the next steps of the move as if she were talking about a private trip. She didn't look at me. She only referred to me when necessary, always using diminutive forms. "Helena wants that, right?" Helena thinks that neighborhood is cute. At the end of the night, while Andre washed the dishes and I walked her to the door, she said to me in a low voice, "Honey, you need to learn to be less emotional. Otherwise, you'll always be a burden on Andre's decisions." I remained silent. She patted me on the shoulder, smiled, and added, "But don't worry, I'll take care of him." The door closed, and I stood there, motionless. It was the first time I thought about giving up everything. The move, the marriage, the life that was being planned without my permission. But something inside me, perhaps a remnant of dignity, perhaps the girl who learned to survive on her own, whispered, "No, you're going to fight." I didn't know how yet, but I knew that something in me was changing. And Lorraine? Lorraine didn't know yet that she had dug her own grave. The truth is that we put up with a lot until we can't take it anymore. We adapt, rationalize, convince ourselves that it's just a phase, till the trigger comes. And in my case, it came with the same coldness with which Lorraine always treated me. Icy, calculated, and without a trace of humanity. There was 1 week left before our final move. Andre had already quit his job, the apartment was packed, and I had handed in my resignation with tears in my eyes, still unsure if this was really the life I wanted. But everything was already in motion. I felt like I had gotten on a train that couldn't stop. All I could do was hope that the final destination would be worth it. That's when we got the call from the real estate agent in Denver. Hello? I'm calling because the deposit to secure the apartment hasn't been made. Unfortunately, since you missed the deadline, the property has been offered to another interested party. My heart raced. I was speechless for a few seconds. Andre, who was next to me, widened his eyes. What do you mean it wasn't made? My mother said she would take care of it weeks ago. We called Lorraine immediately. She answered in a casual tone, as if nothing had happened. Oh, that apartment? I thought it was too small. It didn't suit you guys. And the neighborhood was far from downtown. But you didn't have to decide that. Why didn't you say anything? What about the deposit? I shouted, my voice already breaking. She sighed. You guys are so impulsive. I thought it would be better to wait a little. I invested some of that money in something more solid. Andre needed a mother who was there for him, not a hysterical child by his side. That word echoed, hysterical. Andre started yelling at her. He said she had crossed all boundaries, that she had no right. But Lorraine, in the same blasé tone, just said, You don't have to thank me. One day you'll understand that I saved you from a mistake. She hung up. We stood there, looking at each other. The silence in the room seemed to scream. Everything around us was boxed up, suspended, ready for a new beginning, which had just been canceled. And it was there, in that suffocating silence, that the crying came. A different kind of crying. No sobs, no screams. Just tears running down my face as if each drop washed away a layer of the illusion that remained. Andre tried to hug me. I pulled away. You let her do this to us. To me. And now? I didn't know Helena. I swear. I thought she was going to. You didn't want to know. My voice came out firm but low. You chose not to look. Because it was easier to silence me than to confront your mother. He swallowed hard. He tried to justify himself, but all I saw was emptiness, the absence of complicity, of partnership, of real love. That night, Lorraine showed up. Yes, she came to our apartment. She said she was worried about her son's emotional state. She brought an apple pie, as if everything were normal. When we opened the door, she looked at me, her eyes swollen, her face colorless, and laughed. It was a restrained, mocking laugh, as if to say, I won. And in that moment, something inside me broke for good. The pain turned to anger. The sadness turned to clarity. I stood up slowly, took a deep breath, and spoke with a firmness that surprised even me. Get out of my house. Now. She arched her eyebrows, feigning surprise. I'm sorry, dear, but I'm here for my son. Your son is living with his wife, and his wife is telling you to leave. She looked at Andre, seeking support. But he was paralyzed. For the first time, he had no arguments, no defense. Do you want me to say it, son? That she's not in charge here? Lorraine pressed. Andre hesitated. He looked at me. He looked at her. And he said nothing. That silence was all I needed. Then I'll say it myself. Lorraine, you destroyed something precious. You manipulated, lied, abused our trust. And now, you're leaving. She laughed again. But it didn't affect me anymore. Something had changed in me. I was no longer that woman who asked for space. I was taking my space back. Lorraine left with heavy footsteps, snorting with indignation. But I closed the door calmly, like someone closing a cycle. That night, I sat alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by boxes and difficult decisions. I looked around and understood. I couldn't go through with that change. Not like that. Not with that man. Not carrying the weight of someone else's omission. I needed to change. Yes. But the change would start with me. The next morning, I woke up with a swollen face, a heavy body, and a calm heart. For the first time in a long time, there was no doubt inside me. The pain was still there, of course, but it was accompanied by a firm decision. I would no longer be a spectator in my own life. While Andre was still asleep in the bedroom, I got up slowly, made coffee, sat down at the kitchen table, and faced the silence. It was a different silence from the one that had suffocated me days before. It was a silence that gave me space to think, to breathe, to listen to myself. I grabbed a pen and paper and started writing down everything I needed to do to start over, alone. I had no money left? True, but I still had my dignity and some clarity. I started with the practical stuff. I called the real estate agency and explained the situation. The guy was nice, even sympathetic. He said he would understand if we sued whoever took the money. I hung up without saying whether I would or not. I didn't know yet. I didn't want to make decisions out of anger. Then I called my former boss. I asked her bluntly if there was still a chance to reverse my dismissal. She listened to me in silence and replied firmly, "You're good at what you do, Helena. The position has already been filled, but if you want to come back, we'll work something out. Take some time to breathe. When you want to talk, my door is open." That touched me more than I expected. Being remembered for my professional value, not as Andre's wife or Lorraine's daughter-in-law, reminded me of who I was. After that, I went to the bedroom. Andre was awake, sitting on the bed, his face pale. "We need to talk," he said. I sat down, but something had already been decided inside me. Either he would meet me in a new emotional place, more honest, more fair, or he would be left behind. "You let her destroy us," I began, without anger, but firmly. "And worse, you left me alone in all this. I screamed silently for weeks, and you were silent. You made me invisible, Andre." He lowered his head. "I was a coward, and I only realized it yesterday when I saw you standing there, saying what I should have said long ago." There was a silence. Not one of discomfort, but of mutual pain. "If you want to leave," he said, "I understand." "I'm staying," I replied. "But not for you. For me. I need to get my life back on track first. Then, we'll see what's left of our relationship." He nodded, and cried. He cried in a way I had never seen before. It wasn't drama. It was true regret. But even so, I didn't throw myself into his arms. My instinct was different now. Reconstruction. In the days that followed, I began to move with a different outlook. I looked for temporary jobs, updated my resume, and got in touch with friends I had neglected for a long time. One of them, Thais, invited me out for coffee. When we met, she hugged me like someone pulling someone back to the surface. I told her everything, about the manipulation, the money, the laughter. She didn't interrupt. She just held my hand and said, "Helena, you've always been the bravest woman in our class. You're not going to fall apart now." Those words gave me incredible strength. I started writing again. I started looking at myself in the mirror without seeking anyone's approval. I rearranged the furniture. I organized my routine. I bought flowers. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed to myself while making coffee. I was still living with Andre, but now we were sleeping in separate rooms. It was a necessary break. There was no hurt in the house, just respect and space for reflection. He offered to find a legal way to get the money back from his mother, not as a way of making it up to me, but as a responsibility for what he had allowed to happen. As for Lorraine, she sent messages, emails, even tried to call me for a conversation between mature women. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I finally understood that my time is worth more. I didn't need her validation, or the money, or forgiveness. What I needed and was building was my emotional autonomy. My plan no longer included Denver, but it included something even greater. Finding myself again, healing myself, respecting myself, and above all, never again allow anyone else to take control of my life. There are moments that define who we are. They are not planned or rehearsed, they just happen. And when they are over, we are never the same again. In my case, that moment happened exactly 2 weeks after everything. I was starting to breathe easier. I had landed a temporary job at a small publishing company in town and had returned to working in academic event planning, something I loved. Little by little, color returned to my face. My body no longer carried that invisible exhaustion, and my mind was learning to trust itself again. Andre and I were still sharing the apartment, but with respect. Our conversations were more mature now. He had started therapy on his own initiative and had made an appointment with a lawyer to understand what could be done about Lorraine's wrongful withholding of our money. It was in this scenario of slow but steady reconstruction that the unexpected happened. I was invited to an event at the university where I worked. It would be an afternoon of book launches and cultural presentations. I accepted with joy, not only for the chance to reconnect with old colleagues, but because it would be the first time I would return to a place as just myself, without being in anyone's shadow. I arrived at the event wearing a simple dark blue dress, my hair tied back, and my most sincere smile on my face. I greeted professors, former students, and colleagues. Everyone welcomed me warmly. Many said, "It's so good to see you again, Helena. We miss you here." I was standing in line for coffee when, without warning, I saw Lorraine entering the hall. She looked impeccable, as always. High heels, an elegantly cut beige dress, discreet makeup. But there was something about her posture that I didn't recognize from before. Insecurity. She seemed to be looking for someone, and it didn't take her long to find me. Our eyes met. She walked toward me with that same sweet, manipulative smile, as if the last few months had never happened. As if she hadn't laughed at our pain, destroyed our plans, humiliated us. "Helena, what a pleasant surprise," she said, leaning in to kiss me on the cheek. I subtly moved away. "Lorraine, I didn't think you'd come to such a simple place," she giggled. "Oh dear, I came with a friend from the board, but of course I had to come talk to you. I heard you're rebuilding your career. Congratulations, it's admirable, even after everything you've been through." I took a deep breath. I felt my whole body tense up. Around me, people were starting to stare. The room wasn't that noisy. "After everything you did, you really want to talk here?" I asked, looking her in the eyes. She tried to keep her composure, but I could see the tension in her lips. "Let's keep this civil, please. No one needs to know the details of family disagreements." That was it. Always trying to control the narrative. Always pretending that other people's pain is exaggerated. Only this time, I wasn't going to let it go. "Lorraine," I said clearly, "I don't mind if people know. Maybe it's even good. Maybe other women here have been through what I've been through. Trusting the wrong person, being manipulated, losing savings, emotional support, and even the respect of their own husband because of someone like you." She turned pale. "Helena, lower your voice. This is embarrassing." "No, Lorraine. What was embarrassing was you laughing when you saw us devastated. It was lying about the money. It was saying you were replacing me as if I were a burden. That's what's shameful. But don't worry. I don't hold any anger anymore. I'm just proud to have survived you." Some people around us stopped to listen. A teacher at the next table looked at me with wide eyes. Others pretended not to hear. But at that moment, I wasn't just talking to myself. I was talking to all the women who had ever been silenced. Lorraine opened her mouth to respond, but no sound came out. For the first time since I had known her, she was speechless. "You can go now," I added. "Here, I am the one with a name and a voice, and I no longer need your validation." She backed away, stumbled a little in her heels, and turned around. She left with hurried steps, trying to maintain her dignity. But everyone saw. Everyone understood. An older teacher approached discreetly and said, "You were very brave. Saying what needs to be said isn't always easy." I thanked him with a discreet smile. But inside, my soul was screaming. That wasn't revenge. It was an act of liberation. And after that, I knew. Nothing and no one would ever put me in the place of invisibility again. Today, I write this sitting on a sunny balcony, surrounded by plants I grew myself, listening to the sounds of a city I have learned to love. Not Denver, but my own city. The one I tried to leave because I thought freedom was somewhere else. Freedom, I discovered, lives within us. After the confrontation with Lorraine at that event, something really changed. Not just in my relationship with her, which has since been severed for good, but mainly in the way I saw myself. It was as if all the layers of doubt, fear, and submission had been forcibly ripped away. And in their place was what had always been there, hidden, the whole woman that I was. The reconstruction was not quick. There are no scene cuts, emotional soundtracks, or applause at the end. Real life is not a movie. But with each small step, I realized that I no longer needed to live in the shadow of fear of displeasing others. I went back to work full-time in event production. I became a reference in the field at the university, and over time, I started teaching workshops on assertive communication. Ironic, coming from someone who spent so much time being silenced. But maybe that's exactly why I have so much to say today. I rented my own apartment near a park with large windows and natural light. Andre and I broke up for good 3 months after the episode with his mother. He even asked for another chance. He said he saw things differently, that he was changing. And I believed him, but not enough to start over. Some stories need to end so that other truer ones can begin. I never got the money back. Lorraine did everything she could to protect herself legally. She said there was no evidence of bad faith. And that's fine. She kept the money. But I kept the truth. I kept a clear conscience. And I kept the emotional freedom that no amount of money can buy. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that the most dangerous relationships aren't the ones that scream, but the ones that are silent. The ones that make you doubt yourself, that manipulate you with kindness, that use love as a leash. Lorraine taught me that. Unintentionally, of course, but she taught me, and I'm grateful, not to her, to the pain that forced me to grow up. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see a different woman. Not because I've changed drastically, but because I finally recognize myself. I have new friends, new plans. I went back to school, something I always put off. I'm pursuing a specialization in family relations psychology. And, interestingly, my thesis is on toxic family dynamics and the emotional erasure of women in triangular relationships with dominant mother figures. Yes, I turned trauma into knowledge, pain into purpose, silence into voice. If you, reading this, have ever felt erased, diminished, manipulated by someone who should have welcomed you, I want you to know, it's not an exaggeration, it's not drama. You don't need to mold yourself to fit in. You are enough, and you don't need anyone's permission to exist fully. Today, if Lorraine passed me on the street, which rarely happens, she might look at me with that same superior air as always. But the difference is that now, I no longer look down. So what do you think of this story of karma and redemption? If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear that karma always comes back around. Do you have a similar story? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget, sometimes the best revenge is to allow someone to become a better person. See you next time.